Hey there, I'm Celine and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, I'm going to talk about something that has become more top of mind recently. And that's just generally, I think I'm going to title this like anxiety about current times. Okay, maybe that's not that great of a title. I don't know what I'm gonna call this, but overall, there are times in my life where I have a lot of anxiety on the direction the general world is going in. And looking into things like eschatology, a lot of times it brings up fear. And that's something that I'm working on because obviously it's good to have a holy fear of the Lord, but I know that the fear that I end up having whenever I face the topic of eschatology and end times and just scary things, I tend to have a lot of fear in those subjects. It's interesting to learn about them, but I find that I end up getting really fearful. And that could be for many different reasons, but I'm not really going to go into that today. It's just more so to kind of like voice my thoughts and hopefully relate to somebody out there. And then hopefully encourage you to not have as much anxiety about the world. I have not personally experienced this anxiety in a little bit, but it kind of came more front of mind recently. Today is July 19th, and this past weekend on Saturday, July 13th, I think we all know what happened there. On that day, that assassination attempt on former President Trump it really shook me to my core, because I've never experienced any sort of national kind of big event. I wasn't born yet when 9/11 happened, so that's not something that I remember back on. And so this felt like the biggest national, I guess, emergency that I have been able to witness and be around. I wasn't there, but have lived to hear about. And it just, on that day, it shocked me. I was just in such shock, and I think there still is some shock factor now as I'm tearing up about this, because it's still all over the news, right? And you see the pictures being posted of him with his fist held up in the air with, a bloodied ear. And that picture is just so powerful, that moment when you could see him say, "Fight." That just, the first time I saw that, and even thinking about it now still, just shakes me to my core. I don't want to go too deep into politics for this video. I think just based on maybe some of my other videos that you've seen and different opinions that I have voiced, you can gather where I am on the political spectrum. But again, I don't want to go too deep into that today. The events this past weekend have just brought back this anxiety, me feeling like the world is ending, and me crumbling into just my little turtle shell, and I just want to like, I don't know. Yeah, the best way that I can describe it is turtle shell in my anxiety and worry, but that doesn't do me any good either, as I have seen the past few days. The past few days have been interesting in my brain, which is why I've got a couple of videos coming up that will kind of expand on just things that I've really been thinking about. But anyways, this video, I think there's a certain point, a certain level that you need to keep yourself informed on things, but I do think that sometimes you need to take a step back from news as well. I'm not a super like active news watcher or anything. I do just kind of keep tabs on a couple of things. And so I'm not super engrossed in constantly checking the news and watching it every single day and all of that. For me, I feel like I found a good balance with that, but I know that there are a lot of people who do watch the news a lot. And if you are dealing with like really just kind of crushing anxiety about, you know, just the future and world events and things like that, if you are the chronic news watcher, you might want to just take a little bit of a step back. I also don't believe in not being informed at all. People say ignorance is bliss, but I don't think in this area you should be ignorant. But you also don't want to be obsessive over it, and letting that consume you, because fear and anxiety will it could draw you closer to the Lord. And that's something that I am trying to do right now. But it could also just distract you because you're so consumed in your worry. So I want to read a few verses just on anxiety from my prayer Bible. This is my handy little prayer Bible, which I have a video on. This has been really coming in handy lately. My mind has been a little bit of a stormy place lately. And so this has been such a help. So I really do recommend you make your own. So I'll go ahead and read you a few verses that I have tabbed in the anxiety section, because this is something that we all deal with, anxiety of some sorts at different times in our life, but there are definitely seasons where it's more prevalent. Right now is one of them for me. So anyways, let me go ahead and read you some. First, I have Psalms chapter 56, verses 3 and 4. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Isaiah chapter 12, verse 2. Indeed, God is my salvation. I will trust him and not be afraid. For the Lord himself is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand. Matthew chapter 6, verse 34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. John chapter 14, verse 27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled or fearful. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Don't worry about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So I hope that one of those verses could really speak to you and would be an encouragement to you. So take that energy that you spend on being anxious and worrying about something, whether it's about the world, about your country, if it's about your family, yourself, if you're anxious about a storm that's approaching. I'm looking outside and a storm is approaching at this moment. It's getting cloudy, so hopefully the lighting doesn't change too much. Whatever it is, take that same energy that you spend on that and instead put your trust in the Lord and surrender that to him. And I believe this was from a sermon that I was listening to by Pastor Vlad Savchuk. He said something along the lines of, I'm not gonna say this properly, I always hear things and then I try to say them again and I don't say it right. So if I can remember which sermon it is, I'll put it in the description because that was such a good sermon. But he was saying something like, in the same way that it takes the same amount of energy for you to drive a car forward as it is for you to put it in reverse and, reverse the car. Similarly, your faith is like that. It takes the same amount of mental energy for you to put your faith in God and drive your faith forward, and for you to kind of subtract from it and to instead be anxious and worry about things. So are you going to stay like we're in reverse and stay in your fear and anxiety, or are you going to put your trust in the Lord and drive forward and go to the foot of the cross? Again, I'm probably saying that not exactly how he did, but yeah, I'm gonna find that sermon and I will link it because it was really good. But anyways, lastly, I want to share a few songs, because if you're like me, music is very influential for you, and I find a lot of comfort in listening to worship and hymns. All of these songs that I'm going to recommend are by more modern Christian artists, and these are a few songs that specifically for me, I don't know if they're the same for you, but whenever I'm anxious or I'm just scared or my heart feels heavy and burdened by something, I will listen to these songs and they just bring me such a sense of peace, and they are just such a good reminder to be still and know that he is God, and to just surrender whatever it is that I am being so anxious or fearful about. First, I have It Is Well by Bethel. Fair warning, this is a song that makes me cry every single time I listen to it. So be warned, there might be some tears. Second, Prince of Peace by Hillsong. Shadow of Shaddai by Stephanie Gretzinger. That one is that's been my go-to lately. I just feel so comforted after listening to that song. And then by one of my current favorite, like modern Christian artists, Mountain People Worship, their song Already Won. This one is especially comforting, I think, with the events that recently happened in the United States. And so I really highly recommend all of those songs. And before I say goodbye, I will read you this quote that came up for me on Instagram about a week ago, and it kind of, it was comforting to me then, and so I took a screenshot of it because I thought that it might bring up inspiration in the future for a different topic, but it applies to this topic. This is from Mr. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring. This quote is from the chapter titled The Shadow of the Past. And it says, "I wish it need not have happened in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf, "and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us." Sometimes I feel like we can look at the events in the world and it's like, I can't speak for everyone, but speaking for me, I can see some things going on in the world and just feeling so fearful of what the world could turn to in not a very short amount of time. And, you know, I'm here, me personally, I am 21, unmarried, would so desire to be married, would so desire to have children of my own. Having a family is basically my biggest dream in life. And it can be scary looking at all these things happening and saying, sometimes I find myself saying, Lord, why does this have to happen in my time? Like, I feel like the world is crumbling right now and I haven't lived my life. I feel like I haven't lived my life yet. And if somebody can relate to that, please put that in the comments, because sometimes I feel so alone. And this is actually the first time I'm like voicing this out loud, like that thought that I have had come up several times for me. And, you know, it's just, and sometimes I have to, you know, repent to them, like, Lord, I'm sorry. Like that, you know, that thinking isn't right. It's just me being fearful. Whatever is to happen in my time. Again, I don't get to decide that. I just have to decide how I'm going to react in these situations and what I'm going to do with the time and place that I was born in. So yeah, anyway, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I feel like, I don't know, I have notes, but I feel like maybe that was kind of all over the place, but I feel like that's where my mind is at lately, is just kind of like all over the place, ping-ponging different thoughts and things. But regardless, I hope that this video was an encouragement, at least to one person out there. Anyhow, that's all for this video, and I will see you next week for a chat about comparison and the dangers of comparison and my recent experience with comparison. But anyhow, that's all for today, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.